100%, 100%, 100%, no cap. No one can do what I do, do what I do, do what I do. Yeah, I'ma show you what I got, here's what I got, here's what I got. Yeah, supernatural, the new original.
Hi, I'm Marty.
And I'm Jade.
And we love to tell the stories of women who are sitting in spaces and places that are making dynamic impact.
That's right, we're talking about women who are working for billion-dollar brands.
Or creating $1 million companies.
That's right, you guys. This is Behind the Brand.
Stronger, better, powerful, 100%. I'm the true, I'm the new original, 100%. Stronger, better, powerful, 100%. I'm the true, I'm the new original.
That she wrote, speech to the young, speech to the progress toward. Say to them, say to the down keepers, the sun slappers, the self-soilers, the harmony hushers, even if you are not ready for the day, it cannot always be night.
Welcome to Behind the Brand, the stories of women who work for billion-dollar brands or are creating million-dollar companies. I'm super excited for today's episode as we chat with Iris, who's the CMO of Dallas Mavs. Welcome, Iris.
I'm from Dallas. My first generation Mexican here in Dallas. My parents are Mexican immigrants from San Luis Potosí. So for me, it's very important to really tell this story because I actually came from the conference we're in is about empowering more women to tell the stories because it is important for other people to know, especially people that look like me or look like you guys as well. That it's like, yes, we need to hear that because we know that it's happening everywhere else and not just myself. But I actually started, I remember my first job was Albertsons and was a marketing assistant, and I didn't know what marketing was. My goal was like, I'm gonna be a graphic designer, I'm gonna work for People magazine, I'm gonna work for a newspaper, I'm gonna have my designs in the front cover just like this book over here. During that time I was at UNT and it was hard. It was hard doing full-time job, doing full-time school. I had to pay for my own school. My parents were just happy that we just graduated. It was 5 kids, so I'm one of 5. During the time that I was at the marketing assistant, I heard about a job that the Dallas Morning News had. And they're like, hey, we're looking for a marketing executive for Al Día, the Spanish newspaper. I'm like, executive? Like, I barely even know what marketing was. So I doubt I'm gonna get an executive position. So I applied for it. The human resources person was super nice. They're like, we want you to come back and assist and do the marketing. They're also opening for a marketing assistant for the Dallas Morning News, so the other newspaper. And I was like, okay, I'll apply for that one. And I was like, you know what? Based on my skill set and what I thought I was good for, I'm like, I'm more than likely gonna be getting the assistant position. I interviewed for the marketing executive position, and the reason they hired me that they said, we didn't hire you, and I was glad that they gave me the truth. We didn't hire you because you had skills. And I was like, we hired you because you had the attitude to build those skills. And I was like, thank you, I'm so glad. I was like,
I'm so glad I'm not being an imposter right now.
Thank you for telling me the truth, but I will learn and I will make sure to pass out these newspapers where you want me to pass them out. I was there for 5 years. I became the marketing director and I was the only marketing person there. So anyone that ever wants to go into sports, go into media or go into an agency first. So during that time, I was like, if I'm going to grow in this industry, I need to switch and I need to do something bigger for myself. I ended up transitioning over from Dallas Morning News over to Clear Channel, which is iHeartMedia. I think me being a part of that, being part of a company that was a little bit more national versus a local company was definitely really gave you an observance and a balance as far as what really happens from a local standpoint and what you really are involved in from a national standpoint. So I was in that job and I was like, okay, this is great. But after 2 years, and just like anybody, we all get all right, I got everything I got out of this job. Like, what is the next thing for me? I have more energy, I have more skills, I need to do something better. I already knew I was gonna get into sports and I had to get into sports.
How did you know? Why did you have to?
Here's the reason why. For me, when I grew up, for like any stereotypical, I would say, Mexican family, the last day of school, the last day of high school and even middle school, we were going to Mexico. The whole summer we were in Mexico. And then we came back a week prior to get our supplies, and then you went back to school. But a third of my life every year was in Mexico. So during that summer, World Cup was always happening every 4 years. And I'm like, I am gonna retire with FIFA, but just when you see all the passion and all the families gathering together for just one sport for 1 month, it was amazing because we were with our families. We were always rooting for Mexico, USA, and we were rooting for China at 4 a.m, but we didn't care. It was just like the passion behind, the world coming together for this one event for a whole month was intense. Huge Maverick fan back then. And I was like, yeah, I was a fan. I was like, okay, yes, I'm going to a game. I don't care if they're nosebleeds. I want to be there in the action, knowing that you have 20,000 fans rooting for the same team that you are. But it's that drive, it's that emotion and that passion behind your country, your city, and your colors, and your town, and your family. I think that was something that was really big because you saw all our families together. And being very Latino, obviously, and very Mexican, we are big on family. So I actually started applying for Dallas Mavericks position. It was a marketing manager position, but at that time I was a little bit more mature as far as what I wanted, especially the positions that I was holding. I was a marketing director and creative director for Clear Channel Media, so I oversaw all the creative campaigns that were going out and the creative team there. So when I applied, and I was chosen to be the marketing manager position, they were telling me about the salary, and I'm like, oh no, mijita, like I have to eat every month. Like I don't know what this is, but I was like, no, I had to have people surround myself with people that knew that there was better for me, not just because of the logo that you saw. And I remember one of my friends, dear friends that I still have right now, she said, don't get blinded by the logo that you see just because you're a fan. Know your worth and what you bring to the table. I had another friend that was in finance, and I told him, and he's like, you know how long you have to get back into the salary that you are now, just because all you saw was that logo and your dream and all this. So I turned down the position. I think the next 2 weeks after that, I was crying. I was depressed for 2 weeks. And the sense of, man, that was my opportunity. And I said, no, like, why did I do that, and regret, and just like, you know what, maybe I should go back and just say it's okay. And like, no, hell no. I know what I bring, and I have too much experience to come into this right now.
But don't women deal with it a lot?
Oh my God, yes. Where they don't know, they're afraid to say what they're worth. They're afraid to speak up. I don't know if you guys saw recently, there was this tweet that this recruiter sent out saying, hey, this girl, the cap of the position was 130. She only asked for 85. I never spoke up and said anything. And she was a woman. And specifically, she was a black woman to another black woman who didn't speak up. And I thought, if there were people along the way, along your pathway that could just nudge you and be like, ask for a little bit more, they'll give you more. The person on your pathway that said, hey, don't settle because it's going to take you X amount of years for you to cap back out at that. And when you get to that position that many years later, you're going to want more money. So I love that someone geared you along, and you got to get more experience, more exposure, more brands under your belt.
Yes. And more money.
Yeah, hello. It's true, but it's like so many women settle because they're like, well, I'm gonna get in. Like, no, don't, because you know how many men do not do that. No offense, sorry.
Yes.
But no, they don't do that, and they actually fight for more. And we literally were talking about this today. I'm like, why? Why do we teach ourselves to be this way? And we have to be those women to tell the next round, saying, no, ask for more, and I'm going to tell you how you can do it because I did it. Exactly. So we are far and few, but we will be more. So for me, during that time, I was happy that I met these people, and that these people were still in my circle, in the sense of to be able to guide me and say, Iris, stop looking. You're blinded by this dream, which is a good dream, but don't forget to know your worth along the way.
That's beautiful,
So it was that, and I'm just like, okay, you're right. So trust me, I was depressed, I was sad, but I was like, okay, so this is where it really got started. So this is where I feel like my career actually, where I was like, okay, I was smart enough to know what decisions I needed to make back then. And so I started researching people that were at MLS, CONCACAF, FIFA, NFL, NHL. I was looking at hockey. I was like, let's see what they're doing. And let's research everybody. Something. I was like, I'm going to be in sports somehow because that is going to be my spring to FIFA when I retire there. Yeah. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to research all these people and I'm going to see what they did. I was up to 2, 3 in the morning messaging everybody, learning what their resume was, where were they before they got here, why they got there, what areas, were they local, were they not local, and not even about the race anymore. It was about how many men, how many women, why is it that they got here and why am I not there? And, questioning all the decisions that you made. Did I start late? Why did I do it now? And I'm still thinking about the regret about pushing back to the Mavs 2 years before that. So I ended up researching everybody. Like I said, I hit up people on LinkedIn, like, hey, I just needed 5 minutes of your time. I want to know, your story. How did you get here? A friend of mine actually said, don't ask for a job and don't ask for resume or HR people. Ask about how they got there. And I took her advice because people always want to talk about themselves. Mm-hmm. They want to tell you, and the people that are really care about women, empowering women, are going to give you even more than that. Yep. So I think over 200 people that I hit up on LinkedIn, I made 3 frijolitos responded to me. And one of them was actually really nice. He was from the NBA and he said, hey, he's like, I know somebody. So he connected me. I got an interview with the NBA, didn't get it. I got another interview later and they said, hey, we thought about you for this other position, which I thought was awesome. I'm like, I'm going to get it because they thought of me. No, I did not get it. And then I also interviewed with MLS, which I was like, you know what? This is actually still experience for me to know that obviously there's something good here on this resume, but I need to make it better. Yeah. So one of the things that I noticed that had a lot of comparison was people were coming from agencies and I was like, I have to get into an agency. Mm-hmm. So I had a friend, I was actually sit on the board for St. Jude Research Hospital for the Hispanic Gala. I've been on that for 14 years. But the agency that was helping us, I was like, hey, are you guys hiring for this? Like, actually, yes, we are hiring for somebody. We're looking for brand managers and brand directors. I was like, perfect. I was like, here's my resume. If you don't mind just, sending it over. Got an interview the next day. I got hired 2 weeks later. And I was like, there it is. There was my in. I had to make all these connections and I had to educate myself of what to do because a lot of resources we don't get handed. No one gets handed resources. Go find it. Go do the work. Go do the legwork.
I mean, it just seems like you were just so determined, right? Throughout your career, you've been determined to message 200 people on LinkedIn, to say, hey, I'm going to take this job. No, I'm going to say no to this, right?
And to not get a couple of jobs that you apply for, I'd have been like, God, you must be telling me I need to go into something else.
You seem so determined on your pathway. Were you always just a determined person, child, or was it your family that instilled that in you? What was it?
I'm going to say the biggest thing, I think it was definitely, I don't know if anyone always, I feel like I hear this answer all the time, but it's so true. I think it was my parents. My parents were very limited in resources when they were getting brought up and when they came to the States, that they worked at a ranch and my dad took care of horses, is what he loves horses so much. And he doesn't know how to read or write, but he was able to give us a better life. And to me, that was my goal. It's like, I have to do it for them. Sorry.
No, it's great.
I don't talk about it so much, but it was that. And as you guys know, I mean, it's like women and then Latina women don't have these positions. And we're not seen in these positions. We're seen as uneducated. We're seen as the service industry, which I get that all the time, even now. And we're seen as we're always overlooked and thinking that we're not the educated people or the right people to be in these positions. I'm like, because you overlooked me, you're the uneducated one. Because if you only knew how much I bring to the table, and I'm gonna show you. I'm not gonna tell you, I'm gonna show you. So for me, it was that. It was always them. And I was the only one that went to college. I was the only one that's been in a profession. My sisters and my brother, they're very proud of me. They're very supportive. So I never throw in their face like, oh, I was the best child. No, I think they understand. They all pick their paths, just like you guys pick your paths. And for me, it was that. And it was like, I have to not be a stereotype, and I will not be part of the statistics that you see all the time where, young women getting pregnant or not having a family or not having resources. I'm like, there's resources out there. Do the legwork and educate yourself on this. Even if it's just reading stuff on LinkedIn, read it. There's so much information out there. So I hate hearing that, well, I didn't know. Ask. Open your mouth, ask questions, because I had to do it. That means that if I was able to access free resources, they're free for you too, and everybody else also.
It takes time. It takes determination.
And it takes that. I'm like, just do it.
You were definitely determined, Iris, and I love that about your story. Like, as you're just sitting here telling us and sharing with us, I'm like, there is a determination in her, and I love that, what you took as your lack, you allowed it to be the source that drove you forward through your career. So you're at an agency, you're grinding it out. How long did you stay at the agency?
I was there for a year. I was overseeing, it was an agency where it was a lot of Latino men. So very machistas, very much I'm the boss, you just adhere to what I'm saying. Like, oh, if you only knew how many times I had to bite my tongue just to keep everything cool. But that's what we have to do all the time. It's sight gets you're telling me with your eyes, and I get it, trust me. And it's like, you know what, one day you're going to see something, and you're going to be very surprised. And one of the early on things that I learned, especially when I was at Aliyah, one of my mentors, is treat everybody with respect, because you never know where they're going to end up. You never know where you're going to end up. And it doesn't matter who didn't respond to your email, who didn't show up to the event, who said yes and then said no. Don't worry about that. Because eventually
I got a running tally list of my no's. I have a running list of people who
the no's, the naysayers, the doubters.
Oh, you better believe it. I'm like, wait till you see me on billboards.
Wait till you buy my record, okay?
Yes.
So you email me
asking me. Oh, yes.
So trust me, those were the other moments where I'm like, I'm going to treat you as a person, because that's who you are. You see titles, I don't see titles. I see Marty. That's all I see. And that's one of the biggest things that I talk to a lot of Latinas who are in high school. They're like, oh, I just want this and I want that. You can do it. Everyone can. You got to put your mind to it, and you really have to do the homework. Be prepared. Be prepared and be smart about it too. Sometimes we're going to get it wrong, and that's okay. But trust me, it took me this long to get to where I was. But I had to learn all that to build my character, to build my skills too. So it's okay. I went to the agency, and I was there for a year. And one of the guys there, I told him that I had wanted to be in sports. And I've been always very vocal about, I'm going to retire with FIFA one day, just watch. I told him, and I said, hey, he's like, hey, I actually was interviewing with the Dallas Mavericks. They're hiring, they're reorganizing the marketing team, and they're looking for people, and I know you want to be in sports, why don't you check it out? And he didn't know that somebody at the agency was actually interviewing. So it was someone I knew, so I obviously was like, oh, okay, great, cool. And I said, we had like side cooler conversations, like, oh yeah, one day I'm gonna be here, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do that. And I had never told him the story about what happened with me, the Mavericks, and I never said anything to him. And I was like, okay, cool, yeah. I was like, how about you give me, he's like, if you want, give me your resume. And this is what I did. Give me your resume, and I can send it over to them. I was like, no, give me their email. I'll speak for myself, and I'll send them my resume. And I'll let them know. Just give them a heads up that I'm about to do it. He's like, yeah, no problem. And I was like, I don't want anyone else speaking for me. I can speak for myself. So another thing I learned in my journey in life, don't let everybody else speak for you. Trust me, you have a voice, speak up. Email them, call them, text them, do it. Trust me, send them a smoke signal. You'll get there.
I have to ask you though, because you were already rejected a couple of times. What made you still say, I'm gonna go ahead and apply anyways? Because didn't a fear set in, or no?
It didn't, not a fear, but I figured, you know what? What do I have to lose?
lose?
What do I have to lose?
I like you.
What do I have to lose? I mean, if I already got rejected 4 times and I rejected one of them, I'm like, what do I have to lose? So I was like, okay, you know what? I'll go ahead and apply. I applied and they sent me the invite. They're like, yeah, of course, we definitely are looking for somebody. So we want to make sure that we interview you. I was like, great. So they sent me the subject line. I said, marketing coordinator. I was like, oh, that's not what I was going for. But you know what? Doesn't even matter. You know why? Because if they are reorganizing the department, I'm going to get in and I'm going to meet some people. And if it's you 2 ladies, I'm going to make you like me somehow. And then you remember me whenever you open up a different position, because I want to come back and meet with you guys again to see if I can come and do the job. So I did. I applied and I went and I interviewed them, and they were holding my resume and they threw it on the table and they said, you're overqualified. And I'm like, why didn't you guys read this before I got here? But I was like, yes, I am. I don't want to waste your time. But I did want to meet with you guys just in case there was an opportunity that opened up later, that in case you guys are really reorganizing. A week later passed by. They said, hey, we want you to meet with the HR department. And I was like, why? They're not even hiring. I was like, okay, no problem. So I went, I interviewed with the HR department. I was like, hey, I met with them. There was a 30-minute conversation and it ended up being an hour and a half. And then at the end they said, we're not hiring. I said, completely understand. I don't want to waste your time, but I did want to meet with a few people just in case, again, the same spill. If you guys are reorganizing the department, I want to be considered in case there's a position that opens up that I'd be qualified for. Great conversations, everything was good. A week later, hey, we're opening a position for a senior marketing manager. I'm like, that's not the position I'm looking for, but you know what? I'll apply. Doesn't matter, I'll just do it anyway. I was so busy on a shoot in Miami because we're shooting this commercial for Metro PCS back then. So then I submitted it was a Friday, and then I emailed the lady and I said, hey, just giving you a heads up. I applied for the position. And on Monday I didn't hear anything. I was like, all right, that's cool. They're probably interviewing for this role. On a Thursday, July 19th, I remember, I got a call from the Dallas Mavericks. They were offering me the position. It was my birthday, so it was the best birthday gift I got. I was meeting with my family that evening for a birthday dinner. So my parents obviously knew all the work that I had been trying to put in, trying to get in the door. I just need one door to open for me so I can show you what I have to bring to the table. So they offered me the position. I was like, I thought y'all were interviewing. They're like, no. The lady told me, she's like, we opened the position for you, then we want you to come in to work with us. And I was like, okay, well, I came in. 2 weeks later, they wanted me to see what I brought to the table, and they said, we want you to be the new marketing director, but we needed to get you in first before we could make that decision, and here's your new salary. I was like, oh, shoot. A Black woman, which I love right now, her name is Tarsha, she's like, I was fighting for you because I know my daughter's going through the same thing, and I want you to be a part of this story, and I want to be able to be part of your story. Wow. So 8 months later, I ended up being the senior marketing director, overseeing the marketing department. 7 months later, the CMO that was there left the company. It was November 14. I got pulled into the CEO's office at Marshall. I love her. Yeah. Just remember, just that energy. No one needs coffee after she walks in with that energy. She pulled me into her office. Unfortunately, he left the day before, and of course, I was still trying to get all that synced in. I'm like, hey, what happened and why? And a few weeks before that, I had gotten pulled into her office. She said, if I need you to run the marketing team, are you ready? And I responded, I've been ready. And it felt like a movie scene, like something was like, okay, part 2 is about to happen. So she walks out, she's like, we never had this conversation. So I'm like, okay, I know something's happening, but no one's telling me anything. Unfortunately, my boss left the next day. She pulls me in before she meets with all the marketing team just to give them the news. She pulls me in and she says, and this is where it all happened. She's like, hey, I want you to meet with Mark. I want you to know this, that he knows about you. He has your resume. This is how he likes to work. I like to work like this. And in my mind, I'm like, what's happening? Because my boss just left yesterday and I'm still trying to let that sink in. And she said, what title do you want? And in my mind, I said, with all due respect, I said, I don't care what title I have. I just want to do a good job. And she said, let me tell you something. me and your old boss talked about this, and you're going to be the CMO because we don't want anyone to think that you deserved anything less. And that's that's how it happened. I became the CMO, became the first Latina CMO for the Mavs, the youngest in the NBA still to this day. And I've been there for going on 4 years. So that's my story. Till this day, I always tell people.
Girl, I cannot. I've been like, okay.
Just love that.
But I tell people, work hard, trust me, it's worth it. And the best compliment was the one that was never said was, why her? And I think everyone saw the work that I put in, the hours and late hours that we were in. I think I worked 4 people's jobs at one point before all that happened, and they saw the reason why. And for me, it was like that 2 seconds when she said that, it reminded me of all the 14 years that I was like, it's almost like when you can rest, you're like, there it is. There's the recognition, the acknowledgement that I do matter, that I do belong here, that I do deserve a seat at the table, and that I am important. And so I tell people too, every time, I'm like, don't worry about these titles. People get so blinded with these titles. Worry about your name. That's the brand that everyone's gonna remember. Because when you walk out that door, nobody cares about Iris. Nobody cares about about CMO. They just know me as Iris. Yeah. And that's all people are gonna remember. When you're hiring people at your jobs, they remember you, not the title that you had at the company. And I'm like, on your tombstone, it's your name, your brand, not anything else. Remember that, because people get so sucked into these titles, and that's where I'm like, I'll go pick up t-shirts from the warehouse and drop them off at the arena. Nothing is beneath you. You are a human being just like everybody else. Treat everybody like that, because that's how you're gonna get to the next door.
Iris, that was the most heartwarming story, the most authentic story, the most connectivity story, and I love your determination of it. Thank you so much for being a part of Behind the Brand and sharing. This is the woman behind the brand of Dallas Mavs, but in so many ways, your story is not the Dallas Mavs CMO. Your story is everything that happened before then, all that's gonna happen after, and we are here to celebrate with you when you get the FIFA role and you are working at that organization and you get to retire. So thank you so much for being a part of Behind the Brand with Boss Women Media.